Hello everyone! Today we will be presenting our final video project on sweatshops, specifically focused on the Jung and New York City garment strikes, which were a breakthrough for immigrant women resistance. My name is Anabella Hoang, and I will be presenting this video project with my groupmates Leilani, Tammy, Cheng, and Zhang. We will start with the overview of the history of Chinese Americans in sweatshops. The first explosion of sweatshops in America happened between the 1880s and 1940s. Initially, the workforce was made up of immigrants from Europe. Cheng, from her book, The Chinese in America, state that northeastern businessmen built hundreds of textile mills where low-paid, mostly female spinners, or spinsters as they were called, transformed southern cotton into cloth for curtains, bed linens, and garments. For piecemeal laborers in garment factories, the line between home and work disappeared. Chinese factory owners were unafraid to flaunt their wealth, a stark difference and a clear divide between themselves and the laborers. I inquire you all to think of what this could have meant for the Chinese to feel as if they are actually part of the community and that they actually share the same struggles. There was a reappearance of sweatshops in America post-World War II, from the 1950s to the 1960s. Sweatshop workforce started to shift to Puerto Rican, African American, and Asian immigrants. There was a growing economy and retail industry. The sweatshop workforce was largely made up of women who lacked English skills, education, and experience. Immigrant children were affected too. Teachers reported students dozing off in class and found that they had to labor at least 8 to 10 hours a day to help their family earn money to pay back the person who brought them here. Garment workers were paid by the piece, which is also called the piece rate pay system. This was often less than minimum wage, which went against federal and state minimum wage laws. False time cards were shown to government inspectors, and some workers worked faster than others, so it favored those who worked quickly. We will now talk about the Zhang strike and the background that led up to the strike. In 1969, the San Francisco Human Rights Commission discovered that ethnic Chinese women garment laborers were receiving no overtime, no vacation time, no sick leave, or health benefits, according to Cheng. Eventually, this led to the 1974 strike against the Great Chinese American Jung Company, owned by Spirit Decor in SF Chinatown. It lasted longer than the 1938 strike against National Dollar Stores. Over 100 garment workers picketed the factory for 6 months to protest unsanitary working conditions and interference with union activities. And like the National Dollar Store strikes, Spirit Decor decided to shut down the Jung factory. But this time, strikers got help from the ILGWU, which were women workers who persisted and fought their employers in the courts. This resulted in a favorable settlement 9 years later in 1983.
My name is B, and I started working in the sweatshops. Actually, it came from being a student at UC Berkeley. I mean, Asian American Studies moved their office to San Francisco Chinatown so that we could help bring the students over there and do volunteer work and also build a lot of the programs. One of the programs that was started by UC Berkeley's Asian American Studies community class was a class looking into the sweatshop conditions of the Chinatown garment factories. And one of the results of that was that the students started a cooperative garment factory. And so that's how I first got involved. The students had volunteered to be part of this co-op. Besides doing fundraising for it on campus, they also would sit down and try to sew along with the women. And when a contractor came in, they'd all together say, whether or not if they thought it was too cheap, because the contract manufacturers, they would still come in with say, oh, this is $10 for a bundle, and the women that worked at the co-op would come right back and say, hell no, we're not going to do it that's too cheap, and then you negotiate how many hours it would take them to do that order. Actually, two of the co-op garment workers started working in a garment factory that was around the corner. It was a larger garment factory, and it was called the Great Chinese American Sewing Factory, which is, in Chinese, they called it Zhung. The majority of the women decided that they wanted the union, and they signed the cards and voted for it. But that's where the owner locked them out of their jobs, and they weren't able to go back in. So they decided to go on strike, because what he wanted to do was just replace them or punish them for signing the cards. So from there, the two women that used to work at the Chinatown Cooperative went around the corner and told the young people that had started a community organization there that they were on strike and that they needed support and help because they were locked out of their jobs. And so that began the whole something that actually turned things upside down in Chinatown, because it became a large fight, not just for the union to be able to help to organize those women, but also because it became a community issue. I also started working more in the garment industry after the co-op closed, also because what the women at the co-op taught us about how important it was to fight for women's rights within these factories. There was actually a number of people that started working within the garment factories, not just at the co-op, but in the actual factories throughout the Oakland and San Francisco. We could also help other women learn these skills themselves about how to organize and to try to improve their own working conditions with the help of young people that also had organizing skills from other ways. You could see that there was a movement going on, and the movement actually, what they say is like when one spark happens, there's a prairie fire. But there was a huge strike, one-day strike in New York, Chinatown, in about 10 years after. And so a lot of it was like there was many other labor struggles that happened after the Jung site and the Lima electronic workers as well.
We will now talk about reform and sweatshops in the United States today. There are more worker rights in the U.S. today than in past history. However, we must not turn a blind eye to immigrant communities who may be exploited for their labor. Unfair wages and harsh working conditions are still prevalent today, from Silicon Valley manufacturing plants to spas and nails and hair and other beauty salons staffed by immigrant women. They're often found in ethnic enclaves like Chinatown and Little Saigon. There was a concentration enforcement program formed in California in 1978 to end worker exploitation. There were also targeted industry partnership programs formed in California in 1992 to stop unfair competition and worker exploitation. Some additional information that you might find interesting and useful to learning about sweatshop and exploitation of labor is that women make up 85 to 90% of sweatshop workers. More than 2/3 of U.S. workers experience at least one pay-related violation, which equals to that worker losing an average of $2,634 annually. However, there are now heavier crackdowns on violations. 77 cases were investigated between November 2015 and April 2016 in Los Angeles. The investigation disclosed that they were able to recover $1.3 million owed to workers in back wages. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about how factory conditions changed over the past couple of decades and how women were able to gain agency to fight for their rights.